Has Reform lost their source? Over the last couple of months, Reform seemingly have lost some of their spark. Multiple polling has shown the party flatlining or even losing support. Now, to be clear, they are still number one, and every poll shows them winning a majority. However, the numbers show they've seemingly hit a ceiling. Favourable polls such as Find Out Now have them in the 30% range, but other more reputable polls, such as YouGov, have them in the low 20s, with the Greens knocking at their door. The question is why? Because they've become the whinge party. It's been over a week, and party figures are still moaning about their election loss from the Gorton and Denton by-election. This is Green Party councillor Martin Abrams telling Nigel Farage he is a sore loser to his face.
But are you concerned that ethnic voting, family voting, people being looked over to make sure they voted the right way, and then the ballot papers being photographed and sent off to a third party, are you not concerned about how you got some of those votes?
Well, good evening, Nigel, and good evening to your viewers. I mean, we're now 1 week on from the Gorton and Denton by-election landslide, and Reform UK, they are still whinging about the result. And that's what it comes across as, Nigel. It comes across as whinging. And outside of Reform's bubble, to most people, it actually looks like you are sore losers. And that really explains why the Reform candidate, Matt Goodwin, has been trending on Twitter as Matt Bad Loss. And, it wasn't even close, Nigel. It was 4,000 votes. I think it's time to accept the result and move on. Okay, you lost the by-election. You've been in the ascendancy for many months. You've been ahead in the polls. You've been ahead in the polls for many months.
Forget what I say.
But in this by-election, you lost.
Forget what I say. Well, Democracy Volunteers are predominantly Liberal Democrats. They've put out a very concerning report about openly illegal behaviour in 68% of polling stations. Should that not be looked at? Do we not need reforms to restore trust in voting?
Well, it is being looked at because you've obviously reported it to the police now. So the police are going to spend a lot of their resources and a lot of their time spending time investigating it. So obviously we need to see that investigation play out. The Green Party embrace democracy, and we welcome any contest, a free and fair election, and that's exactly what the Gorton and Denton by-election was. The Green Party had a fantastic local candidate in Hannah Spencer, a working class plumber, and we had thousands of activists pounding the streets day after day, morning, noon, and night, and we won that by-election. So it really is time for reform. A week on to move on. Right. Hannah's been sworn into Parliament now. She's a parliamentarian. I think we need to move on, accept the result.
But I'm not going to move on.
Let's just.
I am not going to move on. I think democracy and the integrity of the system matters too much. But I thank you for joining us and putting your point of view.
Of course, he's not going to move on because he's a whinger. That's what Reform are. Now, fun fact. Ben McLean was supposed to be sat there, but he was replaced last minute. Now, I understand, by the way, the need to get a Green councillor on. And, of course, Martin did a smashing job. But no one likes a whiner, do they? I mean, they were, I think, in a good position when they could simply attack the government. But now the Greens have been gaining in popularity. People are seeing them as a potential alternative. With the economic policies of the Greens, right, nationalisation of public services, higher taxes on the rich and rent controls, people like what they're hearing, which is forcing, I think, Reform into a retreat, because apart from immigration, there is nothing about their policy people like. Kevin, I mean, do you believe that Reform is losing support? And by the time we get to the next general election, do you think their lead may entirely erode?
Well, I think there's no doubt they've been losing some support. Even at the polling platforms that are more friendly to them have them plateauing over the last few months. But realistically, yeah, I think they've been losing support. And I actually think it's not so much the whining that's the problem, although people don't like that. But for a start, people don't really watch GB News all that much, so I don't think they've necessarily seen a lot of it. But I think the whining itself is a kind of reaction to the real reason, which is the fact that they have been losing that support. And the reason they've been losing that support is because they've essentially become the Tory party, right? Not only have they started to adopt more Tory-like attitudes, but they've literally welcomed in the Tories of the 21st century from the cabinets of Cameron and May and Truss and all these people into the fold. And not just accepted them as people, of course, because accepting conservatism into your party isn't the end of the world electorally, because they've been very successful. As they like to constantly bang on about, because they've not got a future or a present. Their past is truly glorious in terms of winning elections. They're the most successful electoral force in the last 200 years, basically anywhere on earth. But they're a slowly dying force. And so the rats have decided to start, leaving the ship. And I think it's emblematic that Robert Jenrick, a man who literally, as immigration minister, was the one that first started using hotels as migrant accommodation, has not just been welcomed into the Reform Party, but has been made the sort of presumptive Chancellor of the Exchequer, the number 2 in the potential Reform government if it were to come to pass. And the people who have gone to Reform, seeking to escape the Conservative Party, who are replete throughout the country, we literally saw the Conservative Party be fundamentally rejected in the only poll that actually matters, at the general election less than 2 years ago. They had the worst result they've ever had. They had a worse wipeout than they did in 1997, which was seen as the worst result ever. And so to welcome in those people to the very core of your supposedly anti-Westminster party, your supposedly populist party, why would anyone go for you? People who have tried to escape the Conservative Party are now being asked to vote for the same people. Literally, if you run through all of these people, Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick, all of these Tories that they hated, that they didn't want to vote for 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, are now there. You're literally going to ask people to go and vote for Cleverly in his constituency who hate the Tories when they're exactly the same thing. That's the real reason they've become so unpopular, is because they've taken on a sinking ship. They've taken on the unflushable turd of the modern Conservative Party. Why are they doing that? It's so silly. And they're starting to make, I think, fundamental tactical judgment errors. In an election in Gorton and Denton, where you were up against a local, a person who'd been a councillor, so had deep roots in the community and campaigning in the local area, and a working class person who was actually from the city, and you put some rich twat from the TV from Hertfordshire up against her. It was mind-numbingly stupid, because presumably they do have local people who would have stood a much better chance. And this is the thing. They've ridden on the back of this wave of kind of being invincible, and that's been punctured now. Fundamentally, that's been punctured. They aren't the people taking on the Tory party in opposition to the Tory party. They become the Tory party, and they're not the ones that are defeating Labour. It's now the Green Party that are defeating Labour. So fundamentally, the original USP, I should say, of the Reform Party doesn't really exist anymore. And so people only fall back on the immigration thing, which is undermined by having the former immigration minister as your number 2.
No, I agree. I think they've made many tactical errors for a long, long time now, and I think people are starting to see that.
Yeah.
And I think as well, because Reform, in terms of policy, don't really have anything to offer where the Greens do. I mean, it's easy just to attack the government, isn't it?
If you ask any Reform voter why they vote Reform, it's about immigration. That's the number one complete thing. It used to be like you vote for UKIP because you want to get out of the European Union. Well, that's happened now. So that selling point has gone. So their whole thing now is literally just migration. And you've welcomed in the guy who was literally the migration minister, who started the thing that you think is the worst thing about the current immigration policy. So you can't really, in good faith, criticise the policy of the person that you've just made your presumptive Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's madness. Why would you, like, these rats are sinking, jumping from the sinking ship, and you are welcoming them on board? Why? They're the ones that sunk the ship. It's ridiculous.